Good evening. Welcome to another in our Navigating Life series. Nav Life is brought to you with the compliments of the St. Andrew Church of Christ, and it's one of our outreach ministries. We are happy to have you on board, and today we are going to be examining an issue that unfortunately has been hitting a lot of us very hard. Certainly from our congregation's perspective, we have met with some pretty tough blows with respect to coping with grief. And today we want to examine that, as certainly COVID has added to it. And we continue to be a murderous people, so that might also be an issue. And of course, road accidents is another area in which we could do better. And then there, of course, natural causes. So it's part of life. That's one of the things that's sure to happen, is that we are sure to face some kind of grief as we navigate through life. And so today we want to focus on that. I want to just do a bit of housekeeping after we have a word of prayer. If you don't mind, I would ask for you to just bow with me. Almighty God, we give you thanks, Lord, that we can come to you with our petitions. We give you thanks, Lord, that you continue to guide and protect and provide and bless us. We ask now, Lord, that you would be with us as we examine this challenging issue of coping with grief. We ask, Lord, that you would guide us as we examine the issues, as we look at approaches that can assist us to better cope with grief. We pray, Father, that as we go through this webinar, that all will be done in order. We pray, Father, that we will have open minds, and that, Lord, we would respect each other, and that whatever is of value will be not only heard, but also applied to our lives. We also invite those of us who participate to be ready to share principles, coping principles with others. We pray all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen. So, little bit of housekeeping. I think everybody, those of you who have been with us regularly kind of know what this is about. So we're asking you if you can keep your mics muted, and if you wish, you can be on camera, but you don't need to be. Sometimes that is also a distraction. And you can raise your hand if you need to ask a question, make a comment. We ask that you limit the duration of whatever it is that you're asking or what you want to share, but wait to be recognized. Sometimes in the presentation, we are very interactive. At other times, we want to present some information, get to us a certain point before we actually get questions, because in many instances, the questions that you're asking might be a slide or 2 slides away. So we're just going to ask you to raise your hand. We will recognize you, but the facilitator has the right to address your questions in due course. All right, so that's basically the housekeeping. Tonight, we are once again blessed to have in our midst Brother Andre Allen Casey. You can read from the screen. When I introduce him, I do a poor job because I just say that this is my go-to counseling evangelist. This is my brother that speaks from the heart and speaks truth from the heart. This is, a wise man. So I don't really look at the nice bio that is on the screen, but just to tell you that Andre makes sense. All right. So listen to what he has to say. I am Trevor Smith, and I'm also a part of the facilitation crew. And I spent some time working with interpersonal relations as it relates to individuals, teams, organizations, as it relates also to things like leadership. I happen to have written a couple of books related to marriage and relationships, but I'm not a relationship coach by any means. All right, so Brother Andre, turning over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Stop sharing and ask you to proceed.
Okay. Good evening, one and all. My name is Andre Allen Casey. We have a subject matter here that I'm going to be honest with you. It is very problematic, and by that, what I mean is that with what is going on in our society, as Brother Smith mentioned, many persons, many persons, are grappling with grief and loss. And this, it's really in front of us more than we want to admit or want to distance ourselves from it. And so, by and large, it seems as if nothing we are doing is stopping this onslaught. Especially with the advent of COVID-19, it is just really awful. The truth be also told, not only it's our murder rate in this country is out of control, and so really and truly, it just if we're not careful, folks, we just don't know when somebody even closer to us, we are going to be losing someone. And so many of us are left into a place where we either feel zoned out, we feel like we cannot manage, we feel, I'm going to use this word, dead. We feel hopeless. Literally, many persons are feel alone and lonesome. And why so? Because a lot of folks don't understand what we're going through. And sometimes it doesn't even feel like we should even have a conversation with anybody, because everybody is kind of going to say the same thing. And for some folks, they're tired of hearing the same thing. And so they just go, many persons who are going through loss just kind of go through the motions, literally, because folks just don't understand. And so I'm not claiming to understand, by the way. I'm just kind of sharing some information that when we collate this information and have done our amazing measurements, we have seen where so many persons kind of go through some standardized stages as far as grief and loss is concerned. And so we want to remind persons. So this is more a presentation than anything else. By the way, it might be a two-part presentation, but this is more of a presentation so this is not a counseling session, but it's more a presentation where we understand context. We understand our own context. We're able to recognize our own context. But not only that, we hope that we will also, from that context, understanding what we are going through, what is happening to us, that we can forge and formulate strategies to help us to manage. And that's all it is just a help. And I'm not saying that what we put forward is going to meet you or match your needs immediately. But we have seen where some of these things literally works. And so we hope that it will fit you if you find that you are suffering. And by no stretch of the imagination, I suspect that we might have a lot of folks on who can relate to going through some kind of loss themselves. Okay, so that is the precursor. And so with that, we will go ahead. Stage one, or what are the stages of grief? What are some of the things that we go through when we grieve, and what are some of the emotional responses that people experience while processing or progressing, I should say, through these stages? The shock and denial is the first thing. And when we use the word shock and denial here, folks, what it really amounts to is the idea that when you hear the information, you kind of feel numb. You kind of don't believe it, or sometimes they say, well, hold on, but just yesterday I talked to the person. Or sometimes you might say, hold on, this person was in great health. Or they may have just went in just to do a simple surgery. Or they were recovering from an ailment. Or you were expecting the presence of someone. And then you hear that they are not there. They are no longer with us. And so what you will have, by and large, and I'm not saying that every last person that is on this platform, will go through these stages in this way. There are some aspect of this stage, ladies and gentlemen, that really and truly some folks might be at a different level and degree where these stages are concerned. But generally speaking, these in almost in a chronological manner, almost now that I'll be sharing this information, shock and denial. I can't believe what I'm hearing. No, somebody have to pinch me, somebody wake me up. I have to see this for myself. That is a part of the denial. So shock is when you almost feel immobilized and you have lost all appetite. You can't move, you don't know what to say, what to do, literally. And then the denial is, no, it can't be, no. And then it starts to come, part of the denial comes out in your explanation why it could not be so. But I spoke to the person yesterday. But we were supposed to do this. We were supposed to get married. We were supposed to think here. I'm like, tomorrow is our thing. Tomorrow, we're here tomorrow. We're going away. We're going to make this trip, whatever. So a part of the denial is going to come out, because then you're saying, after I heard this news, it couldn't be, because we all have some unfinished business. So there's absolutely no way you can tell me that that I should be accepting this information. So that's a part of the shock and denial. Now, I want us to bear in mind something that I have here on the screen. Shock provides emotional protection. Sometimes we don't understand the context or understand what is happening to us. But shock provides what? Emotional protection from being overwhelmed all at once. And this, by the way, can last for weeks. So sometimes people are operating because they're in so much denial. Sometimes they operate as if the information that they heard is not so. So they still are making their sojourns to go and visit the person. Some folks, for some folks, they will go into the room and talk as if the person is right there. Some folks will go and wake up the person, if some folks, if the person is no longer at the desk where they're accustomed to seeing the person, some folks even go there and talk as if the person is there. Literally, I'm just saying, because they are not accepting what is happening, right? And then for those who are not having, maybe we do not have the same nature of the relationship. Those persons, now when we look onto those persons, we look at them and with some kind of disdain, we always say, boy, something wrong with them, or they might take it hard. And I'm saying, yes, they're also taking it hard, but I'm just trying to explain to you that if you are not into that level of shock and denial, please try and understand what these other persons are going through because of the nature of the relationship, and also the level of disappointment that they are grappling with and they're not able to deal with at that point in time. Okay. The next stage is pain and guilt. And so when we say pain and guilt, what we're saying here, ladies and gentlemen, you literally feel. Mommy, do I need more reading? Before we get into the word guilt, okay, I don't know who is talking, but if you could just mute that mic for me, please. So when we talk about pain, you literally feels almost some kind of physical pain. And some of those physical pain could be the fact that you're having headaches, you're having intrusive thoughts, you cannot sleep, you definitely loss of appetite, and we're going to look at some of those in a while, and I mean in a or two. But literally, it's like you have different joint pains all over your body. You can't move, you feel immobilized. That's a part of the pain. Now, guilt now is a little bit different. But before I get into guilt, as you can see on your screen here, it says, as the shock wears off, it is replaced with suffering of unbelievable pain. Although excruciating and almost unbearable, it is important that you experience the pain fully and not hide it, avoid it, or escape from it with alcohol or drugs. And so once we're going through the pain, we have to recognize that this is a part of the grieving process. And so we cannot try to deaden the pain, so to speak. So the pain starts very, very, very from a cognitive standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, and it can work its way into you feeling physical pain. It can work its way into you what? Feeling physical pain. So, and this doesn't happen to everyone, but what we're saying, these are some of the things that traditionally occurs once we're going through grief and loss. And this oftentimes comes shortly after the shock wears off to an extent. But guilt. No, guilt, no, wow, guilt is for me personally, is a scary one. Because guilt speaks by and large to feelings of remorse over things that you did or didn't do with your loved one. You know, life seems chaotic and scary during this phase. Because for you, you're like, you didn't get to have any kind of closure. And so sometimes we beat up on ourselves and say, boy, look, I never get to so and so. I never get to say goodbye. I never get to do this. I never get to do that. Or sometimes because I did not have I didn't get to say sorry. Or sometimes you might feel that you might lend or contribute to the person feeling stressed out, which may lead to their demise. And so guilt, so you're grappled with guilt. And so sometimes somebody might see somebody crying, and in our minds we're thinking, boy, this crying is very, very uncontrollable. They're crying so much and they're weeping to such an extent that chances are they might need to be hospitalized or put into a controlled environment, you know, so that to calm them down. For all practicality and purpose, I'm just saying, guilt, sometimes guilt put you into that place where you beat up on yourself so much Guilt put you into a place where you feel, folks, that might as well be dead too. Just saying. That's what guilt also does to us. And so we say, we really, really, really need to understand what is happening to us. Sometimes the guilt is not justified. Sometimes the guilt is not what justified. In other words, sometimes we said, if me had done this, this wouldn't happen. It's a bit follow my mind, this wouldn't happen, It's, if me take them to so the person that made a dream said this was happening, I just follow through with what I was going to do. So sometimes you see we put these guilt on ourselves because we believe that our experience prior to the demise of a loved one was some kind of premonition. And since we didn't follow through with it, then we inadvertently now feel overwhelmed and guilty. And I'm saying we have to be very, very careful that we don't also contribute to the painful experience. Remember, we are already feeling pain in a physical way. And now we have to be careful that we don't add the guilt to that painful experience. And so with the pain, with the guilt, many, many times we set up ourselves to become depressed. Many, many times, ladies and gentlemen, we set up ourselves to become depressed. Again, as I said before, in addition to, in one of the explanations that I spoke to in relation to guilt, it's because it did not seem to have any closure. I could have, I should have. Okay. Then, of course, this other stage is anger and bargaining. Part of the anger is where we are really looking for somebody to blame. The government should have done this. The road too bad. Them should have fixed the road. Them drive too fast. The hospital, the doctors made a mistake. One of the persons that we also blame during this time of anger is God. Look how much other wicked people about and why God had to take away this person from me. But ladies and gentlemen, that falls under the umbrella of anger. So because we are so angry about what has happened, and we should not be experiencing this loss. We do not, for us, it is unfair for us to be experiencing this loss. So because it is unfair, then really and truly, we feel victimized by the demise of our loved one. This shouldn't happen to me. It shouldn't happen to us. Why me? So this is a time where we lash out and we lay unwarranted blame for the death of someone. And so we are saying here, please try to control this as permanent damage to your relationships with others may come as a result of your blaming. Sometimes, we say, say, because are you cause it? Are you, Yeah, it's you cause it. I have a story, but I'm not going to share the story, where I was blamed for the death of a loved one. Okay, it's you cause it. And by and large, I had to live with that guilt until intervention took place for me personally, just saying. So this is why we have to be careful, about labeling and blaming. You may, of course, rail against faith, questioning why me. You may also try to bargain. This is the way the bargaining comes into play now. Say, okay, God, if you bring back this person, I won't do this and I won't do that. I'll never drink again. I'll never smoke again. I'll never do this. Just bring back the person. As long as you bring them back, then I will serve it for the rest of my life. And then sometimes now, so we are asking God to do something that I'm not saying is outside of his purview or his power, but he says it's appointed unto man once to die. So he has restricted himself then, put it that way. And so it's an appointment that all of us must keep. And since he has restricted himself in this way, then sometimes even it might not be fair to be asking him to do something that he has restricted himself to. Just saying, okay? And so sometimes we end up blaming God because we're asking him to do something. And if God doesn't come through for us to bring back this person, then listen, finish with God. Finish with God. Just saying. So just explaining again, folks, the context, what are the stages and what happens to us and how we traditionally react or respond. Let me use the word react once we are going through these phases and stages of grief and loss. Then, of course, the biggest, not the biggest one, as a result of going through all of these painful experiences, we oftentimes become very, very depressed. And understandably so, very, very depressed. And for some folks, that depression, some folks may not come out of it. And so become not only clinically depressed, but remain on aids to help them to manage that level of depression. You know, just when your friends may think you should be getting on with your life, a long period of sadness or sad reflection will likely overtake you. Notice what it's stated there, folks. It will likely overtake you. This is a normal stage of grief. So we are saying, do not be talked out of it by well-meaning outsiders. Some folks will say, it's all right, man, don't worry about it, you'll get over it, man. And today is not the session where we're going to explain to you what can be some appropriate things we can say or not say. We're not going to use today to do that. But we want to teach you, we want to guide you rather on what could be some appropriate statements that we can say to folks or not say for that matter. Okay, but we don't reach there as yet. But what we are saying here, there's going to be a time during the phase and stage where it's like there's a calm before the storm. You say, okay, especially once you have a lot of folks.
Brother Andre, asking you if you could speak a little louder.
Oh, sorry, will do. Sorry.
You could increase the volume.
Okay, yes. Right. So I'm saying here that there will come a time when there's a lull, so to speak. There'll come a time when as far as you're concerned, because you have a lot of support, even prior to the burial or sometimes after the burial, you know, folks believe that you're okay. And and you need to understand this. Well, I invite you to understand this idea that people will come and support you oftentimes prior to the burial, and so you feel that like you can manage. But as soon as the support is no longer there, and sometimes in about, give it up between 2 to 3 weeks. In 2 to 3 weeks, this is what we have observed. In 2 to 3 weeks, when the number of folks starts to dwell from 40 folks into your house every day to now 4, to now 2, to now 1, to now you alone. Believe you me, oftentimes you feel that's when the depression, so the depression can come before the burial, but it can also come after the burial. And then folks oftentimes want to say you know, say they mean well, but unfortunately, it is not helping you because you no longer have their presence to help you to overcome some of the challenges. So let's say, so you have your light bill. You have to understand, enough, folks, that sometimes when this loved one has been taken away from you, there are the means for your life and living that possibly was heavily supported by this loved one is no longer there. And so not only are you wailing from the absence of this loved one, but the influence of this loved one in relation to the resources that they brought to the table to help you with your living, with your daily living. And so you are bombarded now with that new reality. And then the sad part is we don't have anybody coming in now to say, okay, I will fit in this area. If this was the grocery bill that this person used to think that I will start paying for the grocery bill. And so you needed some health in terms of your health expenses. I will take care of your health expenses. I will help with the light bill. I'll help with the water rate. I will send someone to come and clean the house for you. You know, I will get someone to do the gardening. And this is where we have now different persons, even as far as their own skill sets now, could come in and says, I will utilize my skill set in this area. But unfortunately, folks, when we look around, you know, people, we have a whole heap of roses, you know, and well-wishers. And so there are some tangible things that people would love if people could step up to the plate and do for them. And while it will not replace the person, it can replace some responsibilities. It can replace some responsibilities. And so after 2 to 3 weeks, you know, they're like, wow. You know, encouragement from others is not helpful to you during this stage of grieving, especially when you feel depressed. Because by and large, you also feel that you have been abandoned. And during this time, you finally realize the true magnitude of your loss, and it depresses you. You may isolate yourself on purpose, reflect on things that you did with your lost one or your loved one, and focus on memories of the past. You may sense feelings of emptiness or despair. And so, as far as you're concerned, you don't understand. No matter what anybody come and say to you in your heart, mind, soul, and body, sometimes they might say to them, and sometimes they might become angry towards them because they're trying to deaden the pain that you are feeling. They're trying to deaden it, although you know they're trying to help. And then here's the other thing that causes you to become depressed too. They're trying to force you to heal too soon. They're trying to do what? Force you to heal too soon. And you're like, look here, I want to ball for another 20 days. Leave me alone to ball. And you know, but then some of the things that they say, it almost make you feel guilty to be crying. So what to do? You decide you're not going to cry around them. So you put on a mask or put on a face so that they don't say the wrong things to you, so to speak. And then worse, when you go to church, what you hear from the sermon talks about, well, you know, these folks are going to come and they are going to die, and you know, death is a reality, and all of those things. By the way, preachers, if you're out there hearing me, that word don't help. That's not, you choose your battles. Choose your battles. Who don't know so death is a reality? And so you say, but people don't want to hear the reality at this point in time. You have to be careful about being realistic. That's all I'm saying, folks. Believe you me, it's not foolishness I'm talking. Okay. Let me move on. Then, of course, there is what is called the upward turn. And I'm going to kind of stop and give you a chance to probably ask me some questions. Although I have plenty more, I'm going to give you maybe 5 minutes for folks to ask me some questions. You know, if you're going to make any comments, remember it's only 5 minutes I have, so you can't take the whole 5 minutes and make a comment. Okay, please. But I'm going to give you a chance. Now, while that is true, we have to work towards healing. while that is true, we cannot remain depressed. We have to work towards healing. You see, you must believe that you are responsible for your healing. You heard me. And write that down, please. You must believe that you are responsible for your healing. Sometimes, you see, we relieve ourselves of that responsibility. And because we do not get sufficient support, then not only we feel alone and down and sad, but we go back to blaming people and so, oh, people wicked. And sometimes we say, no, I understand who my true friends are. You are responsible for your own healing. Because once you are, because being depressed, which 90% of the times will happen, but you must understand what is happening to you, and you must accept what is happening to you, and don't make people try to hurry you out of it. But you must also have a goal. And that goal is to recognize that, listen, I have to start managing my life again. Now, here is a big problem. Many persons are afraid to make that upward turn because they believe that making the upward turn may seem to be insensitive. And especially they do not want to make the upward turn too soon, because then folks are going to say to them, so hold on a minute, so quick you get over the person. So quick you get over the person. You see, and so I'm kind of saying here, the upward turn is your goal. Now, I'm not saying folks are not going to try to help you to get there, to make that upward turn. And I'm talking moving out of depression. I am saying, however, moving out of depression is your primary goal. Is your primary goal. Now, we can not know, but we will be looking at some ways and means and mechanisms as to how we achieve this. Okay, but does not know. But please remember also that when we say we're going to make the upward turn, which again I stated is my responsibility, my goal, sometimes the reason why we are afraid, because it feels like I am getting over the person too soon. I don't want them to feel like I'm going to forget them. And so many persons stay into that place of even depression because they feel they might forget, or they believe that they feel guilty for trying to start to reconstruct their lives once more. So they stay there a little bit longer. And sometimes they stay there so as to appease persons, because persons seem to want them to cry more and weep more and more and more. And it's not time for them to start living again. And so people start to make demands on folks. And that's why it can be very difficult for folks to make that upward turn. Reconstruction and working through. As you become more functional, your mind starts working again. And you will find yourself seeking realistic solutions to problems posed by life without your loved one. You will start to work on practical and financial problems and reconstructing yourself and your life without him or her. We are going to give you a chance, literally, to ask me, just break now, give you the 5 minutes as I promised, and then we can continue. Anybody would like to say anything or comment or ask a question? Do you have anything in the chat?
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah, afternoon.
Good
Can
afternoon.
you hear me? Good evening.
I can hear you very much.
All right. So I know we're focusing on the death of a person, but I think a lot of those emotions and feelings that you're speaking of can also come at the, in abbreviated form, death of a marriage or relationship or job relationship as well. You know, a lot of those feelings of grief, I think we can experience as well as we are going through those types of losses. You know, so I don't know if you were planning to speak to it a little bit at the end, but for those persons as well going through loss of not only death, but job, retirement, relationship, whatever it is as well. You know, I think some of those feelings would be felt as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so yes, you are correct in that we are speaking primarily to, and that remains so. Notwithstanding, you are correct.
Yeah, but remember, I would know. Brava asked you what you had in your hand. It's right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Right. Notwithstanding, the magnitude and the extent of loss of a job or a loved one and things like that, the magnitude differs, the degree differs. But you are correct. Some of these things can occur, will occur. But again, to what extent they affect you, by and large, has a lot to do with the nature of the relationship you have, be it with an entity, or a situation, or a person. But yes, thanks much for that. Anybody else?
Yeah, there's about 3 in the chat, Andre. I don't know if you want to just look at them.
Okay.
Or you want me to read them for you?
You can read them for me. Sorry.
Okay. Can you reconstruct and go through depression at the same time? Like, you know, you try to function, but at the same time, it's really not all there. So can you do the two together? Basically, that's the question.
Okay, so you know what we have right here is acceptance and hope. The truth be told, which many folks might call the final stage of the grief, it is the fact that if you have acceptance and hope, then it's highly unlikely that you are depressed. If you have acceptance and hope, I'm saying what? It is highly unlikely that you are depressed. But what I like about, what I will say about the question also though, is the idea that you can mechanically go through, oops, wrong thing I pressed, sorry. You can mechanically go through the reconstruction and working through, and tell yourself that, in other words, it can serve as a healthy distraction. It can serve as a what? As a healthy distraction. I use the word healthy though, but the truth is, so you're just going through the motions, but really and truly, the depression is still on you, but you're just, in other words, you're just going through the motions because this is what you're expected to do. Because this is what you're expected to do, but it doesn't mean that when you go home by yourself, you know, all the signs and symptoms of depression not only remains, but the risk, the reactions to depression also. Can we take one more?
Yeah,
sorry, just 3. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. If someone has lost a loved one and she has drifted away from God, probably because they are angry with him for taking the person away, is there anything we can do to encourage him or her to turn back to God?
Well, definitely. So by and large, but I'm wondering if I should wait until I reach the next part 2. But anyways, let me quickly say it this way, that yes, but what you say to the person is very, very important. You have to be careful that you don't that you don't force person to use, that you don't use God as a band-aid. We're going to say it that way. I'm not saying it the right way. But you don't use God as a band-aid. And because if people are still bleeding after use God as a band-aid, then in their mind, God is not working out. Okay, so we have to be careful that we don't, you know, and that's where my other part of the part two of what I want to probably do, talk about what to say and you know, what can be some appropriate things that we can say. I'm saying that chant, oftentimes we kind of use God as a band-aid, and because people are supposed to respect God and honor God and all those things, then if you're not careful, they are forced to say, okay, then not talk about the painful experiences that they're having, because they're telling them that you shouldn't say so, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't. And so they feel further guilt because they almost cannot stop the feelings that they're having. So I'm saying that contributes to why they might feel that way. And if you understand why they feel that way, then you are better informed in how you not only speak to them, but give them aid, right? So you let them see God in you or through you then, rather than preaching it to them. Let them see the loving, the compassion, the loving kindness, the support. Let them see the beauty of Jesus in you then, in how you treat them, you know, rather than preach to them. Okay, I hope that answers the question.
All right. So the next one, I think, is also going to lead to where you wanted to go next. I mean, when I say maybe the next session, as to exactly what to say, what are some of the things to say? The question really is it best to be silent when someone has tragically lost a loved one? That first conversation is usually awkward, especially if you're a pastor or a team leader. So I can understand that. Yeah. So.
Yeah. You see, you have to learn to choose your battles. You know, you have to learn to choose your battles. There are times in which, yes, your best recourse is to be silent. Just offer, you know, a shoulder to cry on. Just remind them, listen, I'm not only saying I'm here for your support. Tell them how you plan to support them. Tell them how you plan to support them. Don't just say, whatever you need, you can call on me. Don't just say that, because some of them don't even recognize some of the things that they will need immediately because they are so caught up in their pain. So tell them, come out and say, hey, you know, hey, you don't have to worry about this. I will deal with this. Okay, I will deal with this. You'll be surprised when they tell them the areas in which you have committed in giving your support, or it can even change the fabric of their pain. It can change them all, even the expression on them face. You know, you'll be surprised, even look at you and start smiling and say, thank you. Oh, I can't believe it. Thank you so much. You might be surprised that it might dry up the tears almost immediately, because that was a part of the overwhelming things that were on their minds. And you have helped to relieve that of them and from them. So I'm saying, tell them, but also so choose your battles. So it's not that you can't talk. You said something, but you said the right thing. So you never say, so I'm just give you an example of what is a right thing you could say. Don't just say, folks, I'm here for you, whatever you need, just call me. No. Tell them that, listen, I'm going to be coming by here every day. I'm going to bring some food for you. I'm going to think that, you know, you may not eat or whatever, that's okay, but as long as you know food is inside, think that I'll share food for you or whatever. But I'm saying, tell them, folks. Okay. Can we take one more? Cover time.
Yeah, you need to go back a little bit, unfortunately. I'm being called up here. Someone says, you talk about your attitude, your approach could lead persons to depression and so on. So
Yes.
give some, the person saying, give some ways another person, whether a friend, family member, can add to your depression or let you feel more depressed.
Okay, good question.
Just turn your back, and then we will deal with the other in the chats later on.
Okay.
So we need another time out from you, okay?
Right. All right. So the attitude could be, remember, for example, when I said, be careful that you don't use God as a band-aid, you know, and you know, say, listen, no, but you can't talk about God like that. You shouldn't say that. No, that's not right. Or sometimes even if you say, listen, I have been where you have been, you know. And if you think you're paying worse, what about those other people who have been through worse than you? What about them? Listen, I'm one person you will lose, you know. Listen, a 5 million lose, you know. A 5 million lose one day. So I don't know about you. And not only that, look on Job. Look what you say, lose all I'm picking them, he lose everything one time, you know. So look, all Job, look, you what Job do. So you must do what Job do to man one to you. If you understand what I'm saying. I'm not laughing, but I'm just saying, you see, what you do, you see, if we're not careful, we guilt people in feeling bad or in feeling pain. We guilt people in feeling pain. So that is one way in which things that we can unfortunately either say to them, or sometimes, yes, that kind of mindset and attitude is an example of how you're not helping. I hope that answered that question. Okay, so can we move on with this? Excellent.
Oh, and then you give me, you know, another time, because we have some others.
Oh, give another time or two.
Huh? Yeah, you need another time out before you're done. So, but
Yeah, man, definitely. We can put in another one. Okay. The acceptance and hope, ladies and gentlemen. During this of the last 7 stages in the grief model, you learn to accept and deal with the reality of your situation. Now, again, this sentence is underscored. Acceptance does not necessarily mean instant happiness. You know, I remember when my brother had passed, and many years after he had passed, and I think I'm good. And then my grandmother had passed, and she was to be buried right beside me. And I you know, and I just broke down. I broke down. I was like, hold on. And after I broke down, I felt better. But in my mind, I was saying, where is this crying coming from? Where is this crying coming from? I couldn't understand why I felt so uncontrollable. But then after I let it out, I was able to function again. I was able to function again. So remember, acceptance does not necessarily mean instant happiness. It can, you're going to have memories of this person. You're going to be having conversation with other people about this person. Each time I call them name, you're going to become teary-eyed. That is understandable. That's understandable. It does not mean that you have not accepted or you have any hope. You just recognize that, listen, this person has been a dear part of your life and living. Has been a dear part of your life and living. And so you have become, the two literally has become one. Or one flesh, if you understand what I'm saying. And so I'm saying here's, so please, so if we understand these things, then it can curtail what we say and how we treat people. If we understand the nature of the relationship with folks, or the nature as was stated earlier by that person, that grief and loss can find itself in other aspects of our lives and living, although we're talking primarily where death is concerned. So we're talking about coping with grief, but the primary context here is in terms of death. But as that person stated, it can also be loss of a job, loss of a marriage, literally. So that person is absolutely correct. But so given the pain and turmoil you have experienced, you can never return to the carefree, untroubled you that existed before this tragedy, but you will find a way forward. You will start to look forward and actually plan things for the future. Eventually, you will be able to think about your lost loved one without pain, without any heavy degree of sadness. Yes, but the wrenching pain will be gone. You will once again anticipate some good times to come, and yes, even find joy again in the experience of living. That is what constitutes acceptance and hope. Now, what are some of the stages that we go through when we grieve, and what are some of the emotional responses? What are some of the emotional responses that we will be experiencing? Shock and disbelief are the emotional responses. Fear and our anxiety. Disorientation, denial. We spoke about denial, we spoke about shock, we spoke about disbelief. We didn't speak much about fear and anxiety. Sometimes, I say, folks, a part of the fear, if your loved one, if you lost your loved one in a particular way, then by and large, you can start to feel fearful. Let's say COVID-19 is the culprit that took your loved one from you. Then you have now almost a dreaded fear to catching COVID-19, a dreaded fear, okay? And of course, so anything or if you hear anybody, or let's say even a heart attack kills someone, and you know that heart attack is in the family, then if you're not careful, you say, boy, you get rushed to the doctor and check your heart just to make sure your heart is okay. Why? Because my loved one, somebody that I love, and a family member died from this, or cancer, you know. So dependent on the ailment that may have taken your loved one away from you, it can, that same ailment, you can become very fearful of it because you do not want to meet the same fate as through that means or mechanism, which also creates anxiety on your part. Hyper alertness, again, if you know, it comes as a result, again, as I stated, because of the nature in which you may have lost a loved one. Let's say there were, you know, somebody broke into the home and things like that. Then of course you say, listen, we can't afford for this to happen to me. So you know, you put burglar bar on the outside, on the inside, and even into your room if needs be. And every little thing you hear, you jump up, you look through the lights, there are around, cameras everywhere, all those things. You know, if you understand what I'm saying. So that contributes to it. I'm talking about the emotional responses. Irritability, of course, restlessness, outbursts of anger or rage, because you feel victimized by the loss. And because you feel victimized by the loss, then these are some of the attending reactions. The irritability, you cannot sleep, outbursts of anger or rage. Emotional swings, you will have these things. Sometimes, be it before the burial or even after the burial, or different types of losses. Let me continue, let me start put that in now. You can have different types of emotional swings. So sometimes you're going to be laughing and things like that, and then say, okay, look like you're all right, man. But not necessarily, because it is an emotional swing. But then you start crying, you know. So you know, and it doesn't matter where you are. If something acts as a trigger, that puts you into a place where you remember the nature of the relationship you had, and what this person did to you and for you, and know that you have to live without that person, and having that kind of support, it will not only bring back memories, but it may bring memories of you feeling hurt and alone and saddened, you know, because of that triggering memory. Worrying or ruminating is another thing. If again the loved one was able to assist in different areas of your lives and living, then you're going to be wondering, so what am I going to know? How am I going to manage? what me I gonna do now, how me I gonna manage. I can't believe say the person not here. Okay. And so if you find yourself in a cycle of thinking that the worst thing is going to happen to you. So sometimes you might even have people saying, why might as well make us dead too. Might as well make us dead too, because I know what me I gonna do now, if you understand what I'm saying. Right? So these are again some of the attending emotional responses that will be associated with those emotions that we'll be going through. Loss or trauma. Worrying or ruminating intrusive thoughts of the loss or trauma. Again, if you're driving over a flat bridge and you recognize that this is where the person had met their demise, you literally have those intrusive thoughts as it relates to what happened, to the point where you can recall every minute detail about how when the person died. So you can say, the person died in my hand, and I saw how their eyes rolled over, and I saw this and I saw that, and I remember when they went over. And so you can have some of those ruminating experiencing and thoughts, because you speak in very vivid terms about what you experience. And so understandably so, because that can constitute a traumatic event for you, which will lend itself to those intrusive thoughts. Not only the intrusive thoughts, nightmares, which then means you cannot sleep properly. You're going to have flashbacks, feeling like the loss or the trauma is happening to you now. So you can have panic attacks as a result of that feeling, or reliving rather the traumatic event. Feeling of helplessness is another emotional response. Panic, feeling out of control, increased need to control everyday experiences, minimizing the experience, attempts to avoid anything associated with the loss or the trauma, a tendency to isolate yourself, feeling of detachment, concern over burdening others with your problems, because you feel so overwhelmed. You're tired of talking to people about the same thing that you have been through. And so sometimes you really want to share, but each time you share, if people don't drop asleep on you, them stop come visit you. And so because you don't want them to stop visiting you, sometimes you apologize before you even start sharing it. And sometimes they might start off by saying, I just want to share one thing and again finish. And before you know it, the 2 and 3, you spend 2 or 3 hours talking about this and going through the emotional experiences while you speak about it. And so, of course, that person now may not be, in other words, they did not come to, the support that they came to lend it was not realized because you are still grappling with the emotional responses, because you're still having these emotional responses. Tendency, remember we mentioned it already, tendency to isolate yourself, minimizing the experience. Sometimes we might say, well, it's not me alone experience that still, and I should just still be thankful. I should just still be thankful. You see, sometimes when we say those things, and I'm not saying we should not say those things, by the way, but sometimes when we do it, the truth be told, we are really minimizing the experience, and it's going to come back out, and it can come back out in an unhealthy way, or it may come out into a place where there's no one there to lend you support. Matter of fact, it might come out, you're on the bus and you start crying, and people probably start laughing after you. Say what you and calling names, right? And that's why you have to be careful that you don't minimize the experience. We have seen where folks who have not gotten intervention in relating to grief and loss, we have seen where they start to act out on the job, and by and large, because they have been through this 2 years ago, as far as the organization is concerned. But we provide counseling for them, so I don't understand where is this coming from. And so they almost feel upset for you to be reliving a past experience. So we have to be careful that we don't minimize it, but allow ourselves to go through the experience, through the stages of grief and loss. Let me see what else I want to talk about on this list here. Emotional numbing or restricted range of feelings, trying to deaden the way you feel. Some folks do this, by the way, via drugs and alcohol. So them drink themselves so to a frenzy almost, so that they can distract themselves from the feeling that they are having. Let me see if I can get this thing out of my head. Some folks, find themselves getting involved in unhealthy relationships. Okay, just saying, because this is their way to distract them from the painful experiences that they're having. Okay, difficulty trusting our feeling of betrayal, and what that says is that again, depending on the nature of the loss, and this loss could be a partner. So you might say, hey, I'm not trust man again, I'm not trust woman again, I'm not gonna have no more. In a sense, me get a job, because of a job, me lose it. And it make no sense me do this. And it make no sense me have any more children. Cause look there, the one people me have, me got it. So so sometimes depending on the nature of the loss, there is a difficulty in trusting, because what's the sense of trying again when I'm going to experience another disappointment?
Very well, Andre. All right.
I've just have to break again. Okay.
Look at time out. Let me just look at it. I see Aaron has his hands up. I'm going to ask him to hold on a little bit because there were some chats beforehand. Some of these are just sharing experiences, but I think they're helpful.
Okay.
So I cried for a long while nightly after my father died. I missed him so much until I pulled myself together. I still miss him, but I don't cry as I accept it. I also had a cousin that died 2 weeks ago and couldn't watch a funeral until the next day. All right, so yeah, that's an experience. And another one is, I lost my husband of 27 years. 1st of September was the 2nd anniversary of his passing. I still cannot sleep well at nights as I miss him a lot. Do you think I need grief counseling? That's a question. Want to give up?
Strong possibility.
Okay.
Strong possibility.
All right.
Word, you might need intervention. But continue.
Okay. My son just turned 20 years old, who has just turned 20 years old, is still withdrawn after his father's passing some 2 years now. He doesn't really want to speak to anyone. How can I get help for him as well? We fast and pray for him, but what else can I do to help him? Okay.
You might need grief counseling. And so I can only invite you to call family ministries. You can add for me specifically if you want, or some other counselor there, and let us help to give you some tips. Chances are from this session, or a part 2 session, or I'm certain that you have some folks there who can share some information with you. I invite you to save those information, by the way. Remember, it is your responsibility for you to have the upward turn. It is your responsibility. Remember I said that. And so just because somebody says something, if it's not a best fit for you, don't try and put it on. If that shoes is going to be too tight for your feet, don't try and put it on. Right? Just saying, if you put it on too tight, take it off. You know, and you know, that's all I'm saying. So we can try something, doesn't work. Hey, it's okay if it doesn't work. But remain open to try something else, because the goal is for you to have the upward turn.
Okay. What's the healthy way to cope with the trauma of either lengthy illness, like cancer or long coma, or unexpected or sudden death, in addition to the death itself? It feels like two separate things being processed. Yes,
well, and that's well, we don't get into a lot of, and that might be a part of our part two, in a lot of coping mechanisms as yet. We're still giving folks a context as to what happens to them once they experience grief and loss. Notwithstanding, I don't want to let me just wait until we get
okay.
Yes, into maybe later on, or maybe definitely part, maybe even a part three. But we don't forget that question, please.
Okay, cool. All right. So we're gonna just one more, and then we're gonna look at Aaron, ask Aaron, and then Marcia. All right. So sudden violent deaths of more than one loved one due to murder can lead to fear and anxiety. I think that relates to like the flat bridge idea. Yes. So yeah.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. Yes. By the way, oh, sorry, we have two. Yeah, go ahead. And because I want
to.
to.
Yeah, Aaron.
Hi, good evening. Even Andre.
Yes, sir.
Are there circumstances in which an individual going through grief can or should actually delay the grief process? And is it important to do that based on the circumstances, and why?
Okay. I would say that I'm not going to say. Let me answer it this way. There are a number of folks who a part of their coping mechanism is to delay it. And by and large, they are doing so because they are looking at a bigger picture. A part of that bigger picture could be, it is so, could be that they might have loved ones who are grappling with this. And so they try to be a source of strength for those loved ones. And so they believe that if they break down, they're not lending any help or support to the loved ones who is also looking to them to be strong and to help them during this painful experience. So on one hand, a lot of folks, that is the rationale, or a part of the rationale as to why some folks might choose to have to delay the grieving process, so to speak. On the other hand, now, remember when we said right here about minimizing the experience. We have to be careful that we do not try to be strong for everybody else. That and by and large, we are making ourselves worse, so to speak, because we might tell ourselves that, hey, wear that mask because, you know, somebody might say, yes, but you have to be strong for the children, you know, and put that pressure on you to continue to delay and not say or do anything. And but really and true, but then you might find that further down, a week or two, a month or two, even a year, you might find that something very minute might trigger an amazing explosion. And for you, you cannot harmonize why you have reacted in such an explosive way. I'm saying that has occurred because in truth and in fact, you have, there are underlying painful experiences that is piling up. And because you have not had any healthy intervention in harmonizing or explaining or reaching to that phase of reconstruction in your own life. You see, you delayed the reconstruction into your own life. And so now you're at this crossroad because something happened, and you are just, it's like you blow up your balloon so much that, and when it bursts, you're almost out of control. So there can be danger in so doing, but I also understand why oftentimes persons choose to do so. I hope that answered your question.
Right.
Yes, Andre, thank you much. Thank you.
Okay.
Marcia, your turn.
Thank you, Brother Smith. Yes, Brother Allen Casey. What causes this emptiness and this weakness in your stomach area when you're going through grief? I'd like to know what really causes it. It's always in the stomach, or the belly, as we in Jamaica say.
Right. You know, what I'm saying here is oftentimes when you hear the information for the first time, there can be what is called a loss of appetite. So if you lose your appetite, you don't feel like eating, your mouth is going to feel dry as a result of that. Literally, by the way, you're going to feel numb. So if that continues for a period of time, it's going to manifest itself in other areas of your body. And one of those places would be your stomach.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so go on. We have a trainload of stuff as well to deal with, but go ahead.
Okay.
Obviously, we're going to have another session. Let me just
Yes.
people quickly that it will be on the 18th. Am I right? Matt's camera, right? Yeah, 18th. It's going to be 18th of September. So we meet on the 1st and the 3rd Saturdays. So bear that in mind. We will continue along this line because this is a matter, obviously, of great importance. And we have not yet even got into the depth of looking at some of the solutions. We're still working through identifying the problem as against dealing with the solution. So we definitely will have another session. So please, we might not be able to trap all of your questions here. Come back on the 18th, and we will have even more opportunities to answer questions. But go ahead, Brother Andre. We still might have answer before we wrap up.
Okay. All righty. So let me just quickly run through these because I see that our time is really on us. We're supposed to end by. So we won't get into some of the solutions as yet. So here are the coping mechanisms. We're not going to get into that until the next time we meet. Notwithstanding, we just want to finish off some of these, the context, some of the things that will happen, that does happen, it doesn't happen. All of these things will not happen to everybody, but what we have found is that when we had our interview and talk to different folks and things like that, these are the different experiences, the emotional responses that has occurred to folks by and large. Feeling of helplessness, again, I don't know what to do. You feel out of control. Hey, so sometimes folks might say, come here, could do this and come here, could do that. And you're like, nah, man, it's okay. You don't want to go back to work. You wish you wouldn't have to go back to work. You wish you don't have to see anybody. When people call on the phone, you screen your calls, just who that? Lord, I can't deal with them. Okay, little things like that. Increased need to control everyday experiences. Again, if in other words, if the circumstances that brought about the demise of a loved one, no, it is attached to the hypervigilance aspect, because now, as a result of the situation, this is what happened, then let me see what I can, how I can control or ensure that this situation doesn't reoccur, because I do not want somebody else to lose their life, or I don't want me to lose my life. Let's say I was driving on a pothole, I hit the pothole and the car got out of control, and somebody, so no, you're going to make sure that, listen, not just that pothole patch, but then you're going to go on a campaign to ensure that all potholes in Jamaica are patched. That's what I mean by that. Oh yes, so difficulty concentrating or remembering, again, because you feel so overwhelmed by your experience, and you're in so much pain, really and truly, you are distracted, and understandably so, you are distracted. So if you do not have somebody that is standing by your side or coming beside you and helping you with funeral arrangements, helping you with paying your bills, helping you or reminding you, taking control over some aspect of what you're doing. If you don't have that, then the other responsibilities that you would need to take care of, but the possibility exists that you will lose those resources. Also, feeling of self-blame, I think I spoke up on this already, or survival, the survivor guilt, the I would feel better if it was me mentality. And so, we find that why, I'm sorry that I'm alive. I feel bad, say I'm alive. I lived through this experience, and why me? God, this person don't have to live them life yet. Why never just take me because of this car crash? Why have to take my little daughter or my little son or what have you? They don't even get to live their life as yet. I have any kind of experience. Why never take me instead? So we're saying we have those kind of thinking and processing, and which contribute again to the emotional responses. Shame is one of those other responses that, boy, you feel bad about the loss of your loved one. You're saying that, boy, I'm not in life. Part of that shame could be as a result of something that you should have done. So, for example, or you didn't do. So, for example, you malice the person. So you say, it's my malice my father did. I'm a malice my mother, I'm a malice my brother, I'm a malice someone, I'm a malice the co-worker, I'm a feel shame. I can't even tell nobody. I can't even explain to somebody why I feel so bad. So me alone going through that experience, that shameful experience, I'm the only one going through it, because who me will go and say, I never a years me talk me vex with them for, and upon reflection, I foolishness me vex with them for, so me not tell them I feel bad, I feel shame, if you understand what I'm saying. I don't use that term a lot, right? But right, so let us move on. Diminished interest in everyday activities or depression is another emotional roller coaster that we're going to go through. Let us do this. No, I don't want to. Yeah, but it's good for you. Yes. Come outside and walk. No, nothing. I'm saying, folks, it is understandable. And we have to be careful that while we encourage and we lend support, we have to be careful that we don't force. Okay? Unpleasant past memories resurfacing, or somebody just talking, you go somewhere and somebody talk about how they lost a loved one. Even on this platform, and we see where in having a conversation like this, people are going to come and share their experiences, and that is understandably so. Some of these experiences, when they share it, it's going to be very, very painful. It's going to be very, very painful. Some folks are still trying to move past the pain because they might be at different stages in relating to this grieving process. Suicidal thoughts. I'm just going to finish with these. Like I said, I will stop and take your questions. and then we're going to have to look to close off shortly thereafter. But suicidal thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, is quite prevalent. Suicidal thoughts, it is quite, you know, a lot of folks. And I'm saying shame could be a part of it, guilt, especially guilt. The idea that I cannot manage, and what's the purpose? The idea of unfairness. The idea of what? Unfairness. It is unfair, right? And all of those things can contribute to why you can have suicidal thoughts. It's not fair, you know, by John said the world on level, and it's true. You know, we use those terms to say why, you know, I am the victim. You know, it should not happen to this person. And what's the purpose of even continuing to live? Okay, how am I going to live going forward? So this is quite common, folks. Loss of a sense of order or fairness, and I just mentioned that a while ago, in the world, expectation of doom and fear for the future. You know, just looking for one disappointment after the next. So sometimes they might say, what is worse than this that could happen to me? But worse than this could have happened to me. We don't think anything worse than this could have happened to me. So, Marie, right now, me just survive, because me don't think anything worse than this could have happened to me. Okay, anger again towards religion or belief system, loss of beliefs, desire for revenge. Desire, ladies and gentlemen, for revenge. It says, listen, you go kill my people, you must be mad. Nah, what's up? Nobody can say nothing to me, nobody can talk to me. You must be mad. My one boy, my one girl, my one. And so we sensationalize. Probably I'm going to get myself in problem with this statement now. But we have to be careful that we don't add to the painful experiences that we will be going through. And one way we can add to it is if we sensationalize our pain. So rather than, so we say, a 1 penny you lose, a 5 me lose, you know. So even that question when that was posed earlier, say, well, okay then. So if you think that is bad, what about those who live with painful so and so? And I'm not saying it is a sensationalization. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, you see, if the more you see yourself in pain, if you're not careful, you lose the rationale in relieving yourself of pain. The more you see yourself in pain and talk about it in a grandiose way, you lose the rationale of relieving yourself of pain. You can write that down, Andre Allen Casey. Okay, write that down, please. And so you see, so if it is that painful, then look here, I don't know how I'm going to overcome this. Right? But at the same time, we want to go back to the idea of desire for revenge. Also have to look out for this idea that, look here, because I'm in so much pain, you need to feel my pain. You need to understand that you put me into this pain. And so the best way for me to feel better is unless you are in the same kind of pain that I am having. I hope and trust that by no means does this give a comprehensive experience of our emotional upheavals and roller coaster when we go through grief and loss. But we hope and trust that it, at minimum, reminds us of what we might be going through, or by extension, what other persons might be going through, and therefore we can be a whole lot more compassionate and understanding and lend the right kind of support since we understand person's context. Thank you very much again for being here,
All right.
being a part.
No, wrap up yet. Hold on. These are extraordinary circumstances. So we've been very disciplined in terms of our ending time. Just want to, maybe you don't want to give full answers to these, but I just want to put them on the table, at least put it on the list, some of the things that are there, because the persons might not come back. But bear in mind, again, we will be continuing on the 18th of September, same time, same link, same everything. But yeah, so I'm gonna ask if you need to go, but just for a quick timeout, for 5 minutes or so. There's a question, is there a difference in how women grieve versus men? As I say, I'm just gonna put them on the table. If there's something critical that we need to address now, you can. And then there's another one, how do grieving persons struggle with foggy brain or memory loss? Losses having resumed work or office cope. How do they remedy this? Look into that, it's in one of your emotional things. People grieve, okay. How do you help a child who witnessed the murder of his parents and has now become detached and very quiet? So that's homework for you, sir. You can come back on next time.
Leave with those questions, definitely.
How does a person deal with a sudden call that you lost a loved one? Okay. Please explain survivor's guilt and how to resolve it. That's something you dealt with today, so I'm not sure whether you wanted to spend a minute on that. Yeah. How about when a person feels numb? All right, so, all right.
Okay.
So those are the, I would say, the critical ones that are there.
Right. Well, the critical ones would have to be when we come back, we can start with some of those, because it is not a cut and dry response to some of those.
Right.
But also let us equally remember that some of these questions could be personal experiences. So while they're speaking about it, it could be personal experiences too. So that's why we have to be quite mindful of what is stated and how it is answered. So that's the first thing I want to put out there. And so I'd like to give a little bit more thought process on some of these questions. Notwithstanding, the survival guilt, what was that question again? How does the person what? Well, grieving, let me start with this one about grieving in terms of male and female grieving. No, not necessarily, not necessarily. Short answer would be yes, but that's not a factual answer. Because that's why we went through the grieving process, and what we're saying, it is not unique to gender. Okay, so I hope that answered that question. All
right. The other one about the foggy brain, the person go back to work and they're not, fully there.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Say again.
The foggy brain, that they go back to work and they're not fully.
Okay, remembering things.
That's what I think.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is, the exists that you go back to work too early. The possibility exists that you have that the reconstructing aspect of this stage, and you have not started to do that. I'm saying the possibility exists where that is concerned. The possibility exists that you're not sleeping well. The possibility exists that you're having intrusive thoughts. The possibility exists that you are ruminating on your pain. And I'm just saying there is a number of different possibilities as to why that could be happening to you. You might be experiencing, from a cognitive standpoint, what is called stress overload, which affects concentrating and remembering things. And a part of your stressor is the fact that, hey, this experience, what kind of loss am I experiencing? And what kind of emotions am I still experiencing? So if you have not had any kind of intervention to harmonize with those or develop coping mechanisms, then yes, the symptoms of the loss is going to manifest itself in that foggy brain.
All right. So yeah. So we're gonna wrap up here. Let me just share my screen, if you don't mind, sir.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna have some serious homework for you. I want to talk about the little boy who saw his, his father's deaths, whatever. Coping. I think that there's a 20-year-old who had a problem as well. So yeah, people who have a challenge after a significant period of time operating in a normal way. I would want to put it that broad, but you can narrow it down for the next time. Okay.
Indeed.
All right. So I want to thank you for joining. We continue to address issues that are of importance in terms of navigating life. That's basically what it is. There are tons and tons of challenges that we face, and sometimes we really don't know where to go. And so this series is designed to address that. It is an outreach of the St. Andrew Church of Christ. And what we have done is that we have captured virtually all of these sessions. And so you can actually find them here. So these are the links that you can actually find. I think in the chat, Brother Engel has put in the chat the specific link to, I think, this session. We also are streaming live on YouTube. So you can let people know that they can come and watch on YouTube. Of course, we want to invite you to our online worship. It's primarily now, although we do worship and we have a small numbers at 77 Red Hills Road. If you want to come to Red Hills Road, please make a telephone call to make sure that we can accommodate you. We are scrupulous in terms of observing protocols. And so let us just know before you just venture in so that we can expect you. And so this is some more information as to where to get the information on NavLife. We have our worship on Sundays. We start at 9, and then we have our midweek Bible class at 6:30 using the very same link and password. Thank you very much. Please be safe and take on board what was suggested today. Just let us be a little bit more careful and thoughtful about people who are grieving, especially those who are suffering loss. Let us see how we can actually be helpful in practical ways. I think that would reduce some of the pressures on them. All right. Thank you, and have a good evening and a wonderful weekend. And let us be in worship tomorrow. Thanks. Good night.
Good night.